person that grew up by single parents. I lost my dad when I was 1 year of age, and because my parents do not have formal education, especially my mom, she does not go to formal school, so she couldn't get a paid job, a sustainable job that can educate her children. So that's actually my personal story, because my parents were not able to fund our education, and it was really difficult for us. So we were able to get funds through the petty trading that we were engaging ourselves in to fund our education.
I don't accept the language that girls drop out of school, because no girl drops out of school. She is dropped out of school. She's dropped out of school like I was dropped out of school by the war. Other girls might be dropped by pregnancy, by marriage, by poverty. So girls are dropped out by factors which might not be within their power. I don't want other girls to be like my mother, who had to leave school in order to be married off. I also don't want other girls to go through my own experience of struggle for education in rural communities. I want every child and every girl and every woman to have wings through education, where they can fly and they can contribute to the well-being of their countries and of this world.
20 years ago, the United Nations Girls Education Initiative was launched at the World Education Forum in Dakar by the then UN General Secretary Kofi Annan. In his address, he observed educating girls is a social development policy that works. It is a long-term investment that yields an exceptional high return. Alice Albright, CEO of the Global Partnership for Education.
Girls' and women's access to economic justice and rights, including formal, safe, and non-vulnerable employment, adequate pay, and financial inclusion, starts with a quality education for all. The evidence speaks for itself. Women with secondary school education earn almost twice as much as those with no education at all.
Education and economic justice and rights are inextricably linked. Dr. Naradzai Gombonjanda, Board Chair of Action Aid International and Chief Executive of the Rosaria Memorial Trust.
When girls are educated, when women are educated, it increases their decision-making capacity around their own resourcing, including time as an economic resource, including valuing their work as an economic resource. So education opens doors of opportunities beyond career to women and to girls.
Lucia Fry, Director of Research and Policy at the Malala Fund.
It doesn't happen automatically. It's not just getting girls through the school gates that matters. Education has to be good quality. It has to be for enough years. The Malala Fund campaigns vigorously for all girls to realise the right to 12 years of education, because all the evidence points to the fact that the economic benefits, both to the individual and society, accrue more dramatically at a higher level when girls stay in school for longer.
Yet around the world, 132 million girls are out of school and millions more are in school but not learning or dropping out before completing their secondary education.
Girls get less of a chance at education than boys because of a combination really of economic realities and social norms which dictate the destiny for girls. Girls are assumed to be destined for marriage, for life in the domestic sphere, often outside of the household that they've grown up in, whereas boys are more destined for formal types of work, to bringing in an income to the parental home.
The gender barriers girls face in going to school and staying in school have long-term repercussions for economic justice and rights. Lauren Rumble, UNICEF Principal Advisor, Gender.
Household data, for example, tells us that girls spend double the amount of time on chores compared to boys, starting in early childhood. In adulthood, what that means is that we're seeing much more women in frontline care work, often unpaid and unrecognized with any professional training. And that's resulting in the crisis of care that we're seeing in the COVID-19 pandemic right now.
Yet, when girls are able to get the education they need, there is a ripple effect that benefits everyone.
Girls show extraordinary skill and courage despite facing formidable challenges in their daily lives. We know that when girls are given the opportunity, they lead.
I realized that in as much as we are trying to change people's life, in as much as about everything that you're going to do, you have to be economically sustainable in order to achieve so many things, especially your right to education. And this is what really inspired me a lot to start to become an activist, to start to advocate for the right of education for all.
One of the feelings that also sparked me is education and my mom. This low level of education coupled with poverty has triggered me. Growing up in a rural area in Ghana, I saw my mom struggle a lot, passing through difficult situations to take care of us. And as a result of that, when I was growing up, I put it in mind that I have to also save others so that they wouldn't go through such situation just by the fact that they are not educated and they are from a rural area.
I used to walk long distances to go to school, no shoes, nothing, no teachers at school. Teachers used to come at school, and I said, when I grew up, I become something. After university, I'm going to set up a foundation. I'm going to support the girls in education.
The Sustainable Development Goals lay out an ambitious agenda. They position gender equality at the heart of quality, inclusive education for all. But what will it take to get all girls in school and learning?
We have these education goals in the form of Sustainable Development Goal 4, and that commits every country in the world, in fact, to provide 12 years of quality education for all girls and boys. But we're a very long way off from achieving that. And in fact, at the moment, there's a financing gap in the region of $150 to $200 billion a year in the financing that's needed. And that financing is desperately needed to build schools, hire teachers, reform education, provide teaching and learning materials, and really close the gap for girls to progress through 12 years of education.
We need girls who can go beyond ability to read and write. I love the investment in basic education, but it's no longer enough. If women and girls have to contribute to gender equality within the economic sector or within any sector, we need girls to aspire to learn to the extent that they want to.
Governments and private investors have long recognized the importance of investing in education and girls' development, both in terms of achieving gender equality and for economic resilience at scale. But progress for adolescent girls and young women is far from equal, especially when it comes to enabling adolescent girls in low and middle income countries. To support female talent, we all need to rally behind adolescent girls, increase our investments in intentional strategies at the scale of impact that focus specifically on girls' transition from their homes to schools and learning to employment.
If we want to recover better and more sustainably, we need a better educated and empowered workforce, especially for girls and women. The pandemic has caused massive disruptions to children's education around the world, and girls are bearing the largest brunt. A recent UNDP report said that even before the pandemic, it would have taken 257 years to close the gender gap in economic opportunity. In building back a better world, it is crucial and urgent to invest in girls' and women's economic rights as well as the global economy.
The question that we have to ask is around domestic financing. Where is the wealth of our nations going? Can the wealth of our nations prioritize education and health and those on the margins? Can our governments buy one helicopter less and build 100 more schools? It's a question of governance. Access to education for women and girls It's around the choices that our political leaders are making.
So how can we hardwire gender equality into government structures and education systems? Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education and Chief Innovation Officer of Sierra Leone, David Sengeh.
Our National Development Plan, the 5-year medium-term National Development Plan, is titled Education for Development. At the heart of that is human capital development. Because if you don't have those things in place, you're never going to be able to have a workforce that's going to contribute to the economy.
The question around access to education for all demands us to go beyond the rhetoric of leave no one behind, and demands a practical investment in systems, in facilities, in infrastructure, providing the resources to create that possibility that every woman, every girl can enjoy and have access to education. It's about a systems change. It's about changing norms. It's about reprioritization. It's about addressing the most invisible and yet critical barriers to women and girls' education.
You have to have good, strong systems that are oriented towards helping girls learn what they need to learn. And that can happen through a process that we know as gender responsive education sector planning. And it's a way to make sure that the processes and systems of education are all oriented towards greater gender equality, both in enrollment, but also in outcomes.
We have to think about a number of different processes which all happen together and need to be understood, each one down a particular road. So there are issues of curriculum and the content of what's taught. There's issues of the pedagogy and the processes of learning and teaching and what assumptions there are in that. There are issues of management and administration. There are issues of assessment and evaluation. And all of those things need to put at their center valuing the rights of girls and women, understanding them as equal, and questioning the unjust economic and political processes which exclude them from participation.
And when you think about it, women don't just wake up and become women. They don't just wake up and become adults. They're first girls. And thus it is important that at every point of the pipeline, from pre-K, preschool, primary school, junior school, senior secondary school, through university and through professional life, that we put systems in place that allow the entirety of our population to transition, to get the skills that enables them to participate towards our joint global priorities.
What needs to be done in order for girls to gain the knowledge, skills, and agency to successfully enter the 21st century workforce?
It's obviously vitally important that education prepares girls for entry into the workforce, and preferably into the formal workforce, preferably into decent jobs which have security and benefits, and which, you know, offset other forms of gender inequality in wider society. And at the moment, it's not true to say that education is always preparing girls well for that kind of future. We're living in a rapidly changing economy, one in which we're preparing children, both girls and boys, for jobs which don't yet exist because of the increasing digitalization of the global economy. So digital skills and literacy are absolutely vital. Learning to learn, teamwork, collaboration, and so on. Sometimes they're known as 21st century skills, and all of those will be very important for girls going forward.
Employment is critical. So yes, we need education that positions women and girls to be competitive on the global labor market and not just on the village labor market. We also need education that positions women and girls to also be co-creators of value. to be in the knowledge sector of generating new thinking, new tools, new inventions, new patterns. That demands a different way of education.
But economic justice is more than just about finding a job. It's about being able to raise your voice and participate in your community to create the enabling conditions to get and promote equal rights in the economy. A quality education enables this social change by developing girls' confidence, helping them realize their agency, and providing 21st century skills like critical thinking and communication.
But what kind of education is needed for girls to embrace their full potential?
Girls also need to gain confidence and a sense of self-actualization, and that can be achieved through things like girls' clubs, sports, connecting girls to role models, and I think really vitally making sure that schools and education systems don't reproduce discriminatory attitudes around gender in wider societies. So it means things like having women in leadership positions in schools. It means making sure that teaching and learning materials don't stereotype girls into certain types of future activities or roles.
We also need an education system that really nurtures women and girls to be leaders in the economy. To know that you can sit in the boardroom, be part of the discussions of the economy of the world. But change does not happen if we only speak comfortable truths to ourselves. We need to speak the uncomfortable reality in order to co-create a new reality, especially for the future. I don't want to build back better. I want to build and be part of co-creating the best for women and girls for the future. But it demands leadership and investment, and it demands a strategic voice to continue to raise the critical issues.
It's also a matter of constantly talking to employers, to political leaders, to cultural leaders, to social leaders, to making the project of gender equality and education a project that everybody owns and feels part of, rather than it's just a niche enterprise of a few campaigners. It's seeing it as central rather than peripheral to what we do.
We have an existential question and urgency that to save ourselves as humans, we need to ensure that everyone, in particular women, are giving the resources, the platform, the regulation, the frameworks, the incentives, whatever it is, that they can be able to participate as well. And this means all girls who may not, by the look at the odds, have a chance to transition in life, to finish primary school, to go to secondary school, to participate economically. It's our responsibility to enable them.
Helping to turn the tide of poverty and helping people to become economically dependent was a passion for me to do, and that was when we started the basket project, Asige Women Basket. We was basically started in 2017 with just 30 women, and today as I'm talking, we have over 398 women working in the basket project in 5 different communities in Upper East region. We are really beating poverty in the Upper East region, in Ghana and the world at large. And also skills training for women to gain fully employment is a factor that is helping us to beating poverty.
We are setting up a very big center which is going to support over 2,000 girls. And as I speak, we have so far registered over 1,000 girls to come and be part of the center. They are going to be learning tailoring, knitting, baking, building and construction. I want to see a girl building. I want to see these girls welding.
I'm helping young girls to become economic independent through the mentorship program that I conducted with my foundation called Teen Girls Mentorship Program. In this mentorship program, we mentor young girls to believe in themselves and also to realize their potential and their talents. So through this mentorship program, a lot of these young girls are now venturing into works that will make them economically independent. Most of them are now entrepreneurs, and they were able to use their talent to create long-lasting development, not for only themselves, but for the development of the nation as well.
This is what education does. It helps little girls in very difficult circumstances to just bloom. Even when they're surrounded by all these thorns, the water of life continues to flow on them. So we simply need to shine a light on their center of their own world and just to unleash their potential.